Welcome to Long Game, where we sit down with some of the most prolific athletes in pro sports to talk about legacy.
My dad told me that I was going to be bigger, stronger, I'm going to hit more home runs than him. I didn't believe it.
You were just all gas, no brakes.
It's just expectation and standard.
My dad was like, sports ain't the thing, son. You're just wasting your time.
What do you want your legacy to be?
If I'm just known as a fighter, I'll fail.
And not just legacy under the bright lights, but in all aspects of their life, family, and business.
Behind the bright lights, fighters are suffering.
Basketball is not my pinnacle.
I came from an environment that breeds champions.
We worked with Dame, and we saw Dame every day. Everything you heard about him, that's what it is.
My team here knows I want you to be great. If you're going to be mediocre, I don't want to be around you.
Why is giving back so impactful for you?
Why do I do it? Because somebody did it for me.
We'll uncover how these athletes continue to make a lasting impact.
This is Long Game.
On today's episode of Long Game, I'll be headed to my hometown, New York City, to catch up with an NBA Hall of Fame point guard.
And here's a defensive move. Isiah swiping from Floyd midcourt.
Born and raised on the west side of Chicago, Isiah was the youngest of 9 children and began playing basketball at the early age of 3. Isiah's love for the game grew as he went on to lead his high school to the state finals, which helped him earn a college scholarship to my alma mater, Indiana University, under legendary coach Bob Knight.
Isiah Thomas was simply outstanding.
Following IU, Thomas went on to the NBA, where he became the leader of the legendary Bad Boys Detroit Pistons teams we all know today. Let's take a look at where this all started. So thank you for being here. Let's talk about your journey. I mean, we know about all the accolades, Hall of Fame, but me growing up in New York City, going to Indiana, then playing a few years in Chicago, knowing what Chicago means to everybody that lives there.
Yeah.
How was the west side of Chicago? And how did that play a role in who you've become?
It played a huge role, in the major role, because, you know, when you growing up on the west side of Chicago, there's Malcolm X College, there's Dr. Martin Luther King Boys and Girls Club, and then there was Noble Drew Ali Moorish Americans. All that was on the west side of Chicago. And then you had the Black Panther Party on Madison and Westwood. My mom worked for Fred Hampton, and I was born in '61. So, you know, we got the King assassination, we got 2 Kennedy's assassinations, we got Malcolm X assassination, and then we got Fred Hampton assassination. All that was, you know, a part of my first 10 years of life. And in understanding what Chicago was about, particularly on the west side, about that time, you know, really what was ingrained in us was, you know, birthright, nationality, and try not to get put in these colored boxes that we've been put into in society from an apartheid situation. That was like my first, you know, 10 years of life in understanding, you know what sport meant to us, what, you know, Muhammad Ali meant to us, what Joe Louis, you know, and so all those players were coming around, and when I say players, I mean civil rights players. You know, Reverend Jackson, all of them was like coming on the west side. My mom, we didn't have babysitters, so my mom made us go to all the marches. You know, so all of that was like my childhood. I know they tell the story about me playing basketball and all that. That's my childhood.
I mean,
you know?
Speaking about, you know, where you've come from, you did mention your mother earlier. And I know she played a pivotal role. The decisions that you've made and the man that we see today, how has she played a role in that?
Again, I have to go back to the 60s and that period of time during the 60s. You know, and today, in this conversation, you just said we're African Americans, right? I remember there was a debate about, are we African Americans? Or are we, and we had to go change our birth certificates from Negro to African American to Black. So this system of and I'm gonna just call it what it is, this system of colorized apartheid that we have been placed in that's what, we were all fighting in the 60s. So my mom, marching with Martin Luther King. When Martin Luther King came to Chicago, he moved in 4 blocks from my house. And I remember, as a little kid, my mom, taking us over there, and he talking, he doing this thing. But, so the influence that she had on all of us, there's a street named after her in Chicago, Mary Thomas Way, because she represented the neighborhood. I remember, us walking to school, and she would walk us to school before she'd go to work. And it was a real bad snowstorm. And, you had holes in your shoes and everything. So we walking and the water seeping in and snow seeping in, and you're like, Mom, my feet cold, right? And she just, she got your hand and, she just walking. And I never forget this, man. I looked down and my mom had some Glad plastic bags with a rubber band wrapped around her feet.
Oh.
And to this day, that image is still so powerful. So when you talk about somebody persevering,
Right.
and somebody getting it done, my mom got it done.
What an amazing mentor to have. And, it's sad that we've lived in a society where some of our policies have been destructive to the Black family.
Yeah.
And we're still recuperating from that. But I'm glad that you have been a beacon for all young men, not just from the west side of Chicago, but even myself who went to Indiana University. You've been an amazing example.
Thank you.
So thank you for persevering and fighting through that. And as the youngest of nine, when did you realize that basketball might be the opportunity for you to change that bag around your mom's feet, or maybe yours, and maybe, change the trajectory of the Thomas family?
The NBA wasn't even on TV when I was growing up, right? That great game that they talk about that Magic Johnson, was the MVP of and all that was tape delayed, right? So this narrative and this story they tell about, so all my goals were geared towards law school, education, becoming a public defender, trying to stop my people from going to jail. I majored in criminal justice. So those were the things that my mom was preaching. And that was the way that we thought was the pathway out of poverty. Basketball at that time wasn't the way out. My dad was like, sports ain't the thing, son. You just wasting your time. But at the same time, once I made it to the NBA, my father died, never taking one dime from me. I tried to buy him a house. I tried to buy him a car. I tried to hook him up. He was like, no, that's yours. And when you start a family, you got to take care of your family.
After Isiah's NBA playing career was over, saying he just kept busy within the NBA world is an understatement. Isiah served as an executive with the Toronto Raptors, head coach for both the Pacers and the Knicks, and even dabbled in college basketball world, serving as the head coach at FIU. It is safe to say that this man loves basketball. Today you'll see him gracing your televisions, commentating on the game he loves so dearly. But basketball isn't the only thing Isiah Thomas is. Let's explore the business mind of the man and the founding chairman and CEO of Isiah International, LLC.
You've had some amazing mentors so far. Your mom and dad have played a pivotal role. You go to Indiana for a legendary coach, Bob Knight. But I did a little more research. There's a guy named Will Robinson.
Yeah.
Tell me what he meant to you.
I've been so lucky, and it really just luck, right? You talk about my mom and dad, then you talk about Coach Knight, you talk about Will Robinson. So Will Robinson, one of the pioneers in sport, in basketball, Coach Spencer Haywood. But Will, for me, was, he was someone who not only kept it real, but kept me grounded. Because when I first got to Detroit, I didn't want to go to Detroit. I wanted to go back home to Chicago. That's all I knew. I wanted to be with my mom, wanted to be with my brothers and sisters, and Will was like, you know, champ, you're gonna love it here. You know, this is a place that's gonna love you, and you're gonna love it here. And I was like, I don't know, Will. I ain't never been away from home other than Indiana, right? Will was always good at, you know, making sure that during those tough times of loneliness that you have as an athlete, and you know what I'm talking about. That first year when you sit in that apartment by yourself.
Not even sure what's going on.
Come on, man.
Why am I here?
Why am I here?
Why I deserve this?
Yeah.
Why am I the one chosen?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, for sure.
And then you may have that bad practice or that bad game, and now you doubting like,
that's crazy.
Can I make it?
Right.
And
right.
you know, and so Will was very powerful for me. Not only was he powerful, but I was fortunate enough that all the values and lessons that I had been taught at home, Will was enforcing those same values and lessons.
Wow.
You know, like, of course I want to go out. I want to hang out. I want to, you know, do my thing.
Right.
Champ. Go to the game and go home.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And so, he was super influential in my life.
You opened up a door when you started this organization called Mary's Court. What was your decision behind starting another organization?
Well, that's named after my mom, and we call it Mary's Court because, you know, the neighborhood was kind of her court. And what we do there is we really help families who are in extreme poverty and dealing with youth and gang violence, people who are outside of the system, and try to assist them with resources and give them access to resources where they can get back into the system and try to participate. And strangely enough, there are programs set up for people who are inside the system. But those who are, like myself, who grew up below the poverty line, you know, you don't really have time to fill out the paper. You may not even know where to go get the paper to fill out the applications and know that there's some money there.
Right.
Because your daily life, my everyday life, I woke up thinking, where can I get something to eat? There's poverty, and then there's extreme poverty. And then there was what we have labeled gang members, right? Outside of, you know, the system. Those are the people that Mary's Court, those are the people that we deal with, want to talk to, want to help to get them back in the system and try to get a chance.
I love that. I love that. That's giving back. And in 2012, it kind of came full circle for you where you won the King Legacy Award.
Yeah.
What did that mean to you?
You know, that's probably one of the most significant and proudest awards that I've ever gotten. A, because of, you know, again, how we grew up. B, being a member of the Dr. Martin Luther King Boys and Girls Club on Sacramento and Washington on the west side of Chicago. So representing that and then receiving that award, you know, it just, you know, it's just full circle, you know, and not only is it full circle, but it's like you're giving back, but you also preaching the message. When Dr. King said, hey, I don't want to be judged by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character, right? And we play that speech all the time, his I Have a Dream speech.
Right.
But we've twisted it into meaning something else because he clearly is saying, look, I don't want to live in a society, and we shouldn't want to live in a society where this artificial race thing is based on skin color. He's saying, hey, we should all be Americans.
You've been all over the world. You've mentioned your upbringing. There's millions of people you grew up with in Chicago.
Yeah.
Why, from your perspective, is giving back to all these community initiatives, getting in front of these young men and women and helping their lives out. Why is that so impactful for you?
I was taught to be a servant, just service, give. It's like the more you give, the more you get to give, But you can't be no fool either, right? You can't get taken advantage of. But at the same time, I would not be sitting here if it wasn't for the generosity of somebody that I don't even know, didn't even meet, wrote a check to the Boys and Girls Club or help Coach Johnny Gage, get that car to drive us to that term, some anonymous person or persons are responsible for me and you probably sitting in these chairs today.
Absolutely.
That we've never met.
Absolutely.
Probably will never see. And I hope we are honoring them. But why do I do it? Because somebody did it for me.
So as I sit here in corporate America, this question really is for me, but I'm sure our viewers are gonna love it. Coach, player, executive, I'm trying to be a good colleague, husband, father myself. I'm trying to lead in the right way. For you, if you were gonna give me some advice on leadership and the traits I need to have as I transition into corporate America, what would that be?
First piece of advice I would say, hey, for you, be a good person, right? To me, I've been in all aspects, and it's like most of the really successful people that I've met, with the exception of a few, the majority of them are just really good people, right? And the good guys do win. But there are some bad guys that kind of, work their way through.
Right.
But for the most part, I would start there, like, just be like a good person and then try to help people. Right. It's no different than being, on a team, right? It's like you find a group that you can give them a vision or a goal and say, okay, we want to do X. Now everybody got their role to do. And what I always try to do is when people fail, this is where good coaching comes in or good managing comes in. When people fail, right, the coach didn't kick you off the team. He's like, all right, let me show you how to do this. Right? Now, if you keep messing up, I'm about to find somebody else. I mean, you can't get it. So I always try to, when people fail in my organizations, my job is to dust them off, pick them up, inspire them again, and let them go run.
I appreciate those pointers on leadership, and the number one I took out of that is being a good dude. And I do try my best to be a good person. No one's perfect, but you try. Because we talk about the leadership, how I even got to UBS, and this role started in the sense that as I left Indiana University, I didn't have enough financial education that I thought I should have had.
Right.
Athletes need to have some balance when it comes to being the best on the field, on the court, whatever it is, but also when it comes to managing your money. You being an elder statesman, what can we do better to push the narrative of financial literacy for our players and getting away from that mentality that there's not enough time in the day to do both?
The language around financial literacy in a terminology, I would say we need to put it in terms and language that we understand. But when you shift me into another lane of language and terminology, and it's like getting traded from one team to another. One coach may call a down and out, some other terminology, right? So you have to learn the language of that system to be able to really apply it and understand it.
Exactly.
So when we get in the money lane, they change the language. Now you gotta learn all these new terminology, which makes you unsure about budgeting, managing your money. If they would simplify the language and put it in terms that we can understand, and don't give me the $1 million or $2 million equation, but break it down to the dollar.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And how much am I earning, spending, losing on my dollar?
Yep.
Isiah Thomas has won at every level throughout his career. This man has defeated NBA gods. He's been named to both the top 50 and top 75 players of all time lists. That should be enough, right? A player with that championship drive wants to be remembered for so much more.
If we were to walk through the city of Chicago right now on the west side, what would you think your legacy is?
Mary Thomas' son. I am my mother's son. My mom always found a way to have something positive to say, never complain. She never was a woe is me kind of person. On the west side of Chicago, yeah, I made it to the NBA. I had all this success and everything, but that's Miss Thomas' son. That's my legacy. I'm Mrs. Thomas' son.
Would they know about you being the first African American to own a vineyard and a champagne brand? Would they know about that?
They would respect that. They would hear it. They would be proud of me. They would be happy for me. But at the same time, on the west side of Chicago, see, you've been in Chicago. See, I used to shine shoes. So I was one of them kids that got kicked off of Michigan Avenue for trying to shine shoes, right? First time I got to go to Rush Street was when I was in the NBA. West side of Chicago, I'm Mary Thomas' son.
Wow.
Period. Now, yeah, they call me Tuss or Junior. Hey, man, it's cool. I'm happy for you, man. I'm glad you're doing good. Everything all right, so forth and so on. But, your mom, man, she was a hell of a woman.
That entrepreneur spirit still goes hard in Chicago. Now it's not shining the shoes, they're selling the M&Ms, they're selling the candy out there. For those young entrepreneurs that see you and where you come from, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that experience that y'all call hustling, that's not hustling. That's a term that somebody else has put on it. Basically, y'all have started your own business. And hey, I'm in environmental sustainability right now, and I'm taking hemp and I'm converting it into hemp pellets, and I'm reducing the carbon footprint in the automobile industry using hemp and replacing plastic. Sustainability, reducing carbon. Now, I didn't realize when I was young, when I used to hustle bottles and grab cans and take them to the store to get that money back, I didn't realize that I was in the recycling business. I didn't realize that I was in sustainability already. Right?
Yeah, man.
And so, those lessons that you call hustle, no, you are young entrepreneurs starting your own business. You just ain't paying no taxes right now.
Listen, it's been an honor speaking with you and hearing your journey. I mean, I've heard it many times, but to hear the behind the scenes and to go deeper with you has been an amazing experience for me. I thank you for continuing to be an amazing legacy example for us in the community. Please continue down this path. And I want to tell you, we got you your roses and your flowers. You can take that with you.
All right.
It can fit in your car. But again, thank you so much for being with us on Long Game. Really appreciate it.
And thank you. And just know that, there's a whole generation of people that are older than you are very proud of you.
Thank you.
Just for
Appreciate
all
it.
that you've done
Thank
and
you.
who you are.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.